Hi, I'm Dan Fishman. I'm the winemaker here at Donham Estate. Just wanted to run you through your fall allocation for your membership and also tell you a little bit about some of the add-on wines we have available. As some of you probably know, the 2020 vintage was a pretty difficult one here in Northern California. We had a series of fires that broke out. This affected the wines in a few ways. We were lucky being in Carneros that we were quite far away from any of the actual fires, so we didn't have any smoke issues. But we wanted to be ahead of that in case there was smoke later, so we picked everything a little bit earlier than we might have otherwise. So what you'll find is the wines are a little bit lighter, a little bit more elegant. But that being said, we did a very stringent barrel selection. We only made about half the amount of wine that we normally do. And so I think you'll still find that richness and intensity that you're looking for in Donham, just maybe a little bit shifted towards the red fruit spectrum. The first wine in the fall allocation is our 2020 Carneros Estate Pinot. This is Donham's flagship wine. We've made it every vintage since 2001, our first vintage, and it's blended from multiple blocks across the estate vineyard. I think this is one that really shows the terroir of our particular parcel, as well as representing Carneros as a whole. I always get a little note that I call sassafras, or kind of the flavor of root beer. I think that's kind of the signature of our Carneros Pinot. So I definitely find that in this vintage. A lot of red fruit, which is typical for Carneros. A little bit lighter than maybe typical Donham vintage, but still got plenty of power. Tend to get a little bit of a salty characteristic in our Carneros Pinot. I think that's probably because we're so close to San Pablo Bay. But really nice, elegant wine. I think this is one of the ones in our portfolio that you can drink a little bit younger, 3 or 4 years after the vintage date, and then ages really nicely for another 4 or 5 years. Next up is the 2020 West Slope Pinot Noir, which is from the oldest vines on our property. This was the first reserve wine that Donham ever made, and it's always been based from this one small parcel right at the back of the estate next to the irrigation pond. Typically, this has been one of our richer wines from Carneros, if not the richest, but with the 2020 vintage being a little different, it's definitely a little bit lighter in style, a little bit more leaning towards boysenberry, raspberry. Also picked up a really interesting note, I thought, of blood orange. Sort of a citrus element, which is unusual for this wine, but I'm actually really thrilled with this wine. I think it shows the power of these old vines to make complex wine in a difficult vintage, and also to be able to express the complexity and depth that we're looking for without necessarily needing the extra ripeness and richness that comes from a later season. So I think this is a really special West Slope, a little bit different than we've typically done, but I think really interesting. In addition to the West Slope included in your allocation, we're also offering the large format 1.5 liter magnums of this wine. I think it's always interesting to try from a large format, but in this vintage, I think it's particularly a nice touch because with it being a little bit earlier picked and a little higher acidity, I think this wine is going to age beautifully. And with the aging being slower in the Magnum, I can easily see this being a 10+ year wine that's really going to show some extra levels of complexity once it has that cellar age. Beyond the large format bottles, we are also offering the opportunity to dip into the Donham library and try a vertical of our Carneros Estate Pinot. So this is really cool because you have the chance to taste all of these wines that you may have tasted previously as a member, or maybe you didn't get a chance if you haven't been a member that long. But this is sort of our flagship wine, and all perfectly aged in our cellar, and it's a chance to taste them side by side. So the difference between each of these vintages is actually pretty distinct. We've already talked about how 2020 was on the light side. We had 19, which was middle of the road in terms of temperature, but really, really elegant wines, really nice slow ripening. 2018 was a little bit richer than that, a little bit of heat spike, but also a really age-worthy wine. I think 18 and 19 were two kind of winemakers vintages that a lot of people were really excited about. And then 2017, which was a really difficult, challenging year, but I think made for some interesting wines in the end. So that vintage featured 3 really big heat spikes spaced out. So a really rich vintage. And I think that 2017 is in its prime drinking now, where you can compare to the 18 and 19 and a little bit cooler vintage, how those are aging a little bit more slowly. Thanks for taking a little journey through the fall allocation with me and for being a member here at Donham. I hope you enjoy the wines, and cheers.